because there are a lot of forces out there that don't want secondhand marketplaces. They want to restrict people's ability to buy their items to them and to the people they say it's okay to buy them from. Hello everybody, welcome back to the cabin. Welcome back to Commonwealth Flipper. You know, I've been talking about issues that I think are important for quite a while now, but especially over the last month or so. A few issues that I think are really significant, maybe not for every single person, but for resellers as a whole, things that I think we should be paying attention to and being proactive on and having some discourse on as well. And, you know, I'm pretty, I don't know if excited is, I'm encouraged to give you some of the news I'm going to give you today about some of the issues that I'm passionate about, maybe unduly passionate, but I don't think so. I think these things are important and I think we should pay attention to them. And I want to talk about that. I'm actually going to reduce the amount of items I'm shipping out in this video significantly. We have probably 32 items right here that we could ship out. I'm going to try to keep it to maybe 10, 11, 12, something like that, so we can talk about this issue a little bit, and then I'll film another video tomorrow. Let's go take a look. Like I said, we're going to keep it to a minimum as far as what we're selling today or what we're picking that we've already sold. But I'm going to pick this one really quick. I think it's B-R-U-M-E-S. I think it's Brum is how you pronounce it. That's obviously French. And this one right here, sealed, is a really nice sale. It has been hanging around quite a while. And it's sold for $120 plus shipping. I'm not sure. Maybe I took an offer on that one. But either way, a really, really nice sale. Like I said, I was going to get into the topic here pretty quick, and I am, and I'll pick a few things as we go throughout. But for those of you who haven't watched my channel before, I've done videos in the past, way back when, about the Informed Consumer Act. I thought there were some concerns in that would lead to eventual problems. I think that's proven to be the case, especially with the increase of the SAD lawsuits, the Schedule A defendant lawsuits. And I think that is a big issue, and I've been educating myself about it for a while, and I've done this on the last, well, not the last few videos, but a few videos back we talked about it a little bit more. And when I start doing that, I start getting a ton of information coming to me from eBay resellers. Now, there are tons of people who watch this stuff across all platforms. So, you know, to have, you know, a dozen people write specific accounts where things have affected them means it's not affecting everybody. However, I think that the cumulative effect and the fear that some of these things have put on resellers continues to pinch the items that we're allowed to resell, which we're allowed to resell just about anything, FYI. And that's something we'll talk about a little bit as well today. But I really want to focus on a few specific topics, especially the SAD lawsuits, and give you some information on that, where I think resellers are learning. They're educating themselves enough to get to the point where they know how to react to this stuff. If it happens to them, they know how to help others who are in this situation. And hopefully we know how to be proactive about this stuff so that there's not all this encroachment on what we do for a living, what we do as a side hustle to give us more money, to go on vacation, save, you know, pay off debt, whatever it is that we do with the money that we do. We're all in different situations, but I do think that it is very important for all of us to understand these things, to educate ourselves, and to advocate for ourselves, and that's what we're going to talk about. Sold a realistic mixing console right here. Not my favorite thing to sell, but it's not too bad, I suppose. You get stuff cheap enough, you can sell it off. This one sold for $30 plus shipping, so we'll make a little bit of money on that one. Now, I'm not going to get into the details of the Informed Consumer Act. I'm not going to get into the details of the Shop Safe Act today. If you want to go back and watch those videos, you can do that. I'm going to also suggest that people, once you're done hearing this, watch two specific videos that'll give you an idea of what I'm talking about and how, in some ways, the deck is starting to be stacked against us. But there is, I don't know if you want to call it help on the way, but there are certainly educated folks out there that realize what's going on is really abuse by some of these companies and these trademark owners, and it's restrictive to our first sale doctrine and a lot of the good news coming out of it. I also got messages from individual people who have gone through these cases, who are in the midst of going through these cases, and I've been able to, at least in a couple occasions, give them the information that they need to go about solving their own issues And if they do that, and hopefully they do, and they have in a couple of cases, it should be good for the rest of us. Because if people just roll over to these abuses in trade, look, there's a lot of folks out there that need to be able to protect their intellectual property. That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is the abuse of it, where it starts to encroach on our ability and our rights. And that's what I'm talking about. And that's what's been going on. And it's been increasing since Informed Consumer because of these sad cases. And I certainly think that there is some good news coming out of these. At least the people I've been talking to and dealing with, I've been getting good reports lately. I also want to point out that when I've done these videos in the past, there tends to be a little bit of partisanship down there in the comments. And I'm just trying to tell people this is not a partisan issue. And that's what scares me the most. When you have politicians agreeing on something these days, you should wonder what the heck's going on, because that doesn't happen very much. And in the case of Inform, that was a piece of legislation that was supposedly bipartisan. And a lot of these issues we have to educate the lawmakers on. And it's not just me saying that, it's some other folks, and we'll talk about that in a second, because they don't quite understand it. They understand it, but they don't understand the abuse that's going on and the effects it has on folks like us who are just trying to make a few extra bucks, or in my case, work out of a shed in the backyard. This right here, I'm trying to think of the name of this, can't even remember it. Right? It's a Sunbeam coffee maker, and I don't know if it's a special one, but it's missing a couple things. I don't even know if it works. We sold it as is, and it's still sold for $55 plus shipping. And I'm going to link these videos that I talk about throughout this video at probably in the video description, maybe in the comments. I might just throw them up on the screen. You can look them up. And at the end of the video, you can go check them out. I want to get into the fact that this isn't necessarily bipartisan. And these two videos that we're going to talk about, this isn't something where it's like, oh, it's this guy's problem, or it's this politician, or this politician, or this group of politicians. It's a whole bunch of them. Now, there are a few people we can really point to, and I have before in the past. There are, Senator Tillis and Chris Coons from, I don't even know where he's from, Connecticut? No, it was Delaware, and Tillis, of course, is from North Carolina. So this was a bipartisan bill, this Informed Consumer Act, and a lot of it is driven by a couple of different things. There's a hidden agenda, we've talked about this before, and then there's an overt agenda. Depending on which side of the aisle you come down on, you are supporting part of this thing, and that's why it has some support from both parties. Both of these videos will kind of give credence to either argument if you're on the left or the right, but my point here is it doesn't make a difference who your congressman is, who your senator is, who these people are. Both sides of the aisle need to understand what's going on, because there are interests involved that I agree with, of course. I don't think it's right for companies in China to be infringing on people's intellectual property from the States and be pushing all this, what you want to call it, counterfeit goods, or if you want to call it imitation goods, or whatever it is. And so there is an effort, I think a just effort on a lot of cases with a lot of these folks, to try to hamper this stuff, to kind of handicap it a little bit. And that is definitely something that should be done. But in the process, there have, in my opinion, been very few safeguards put in place for folks who are doing things legitimately, doing them the right way, or at least doing them to the best of their ability the right way. And the heavy punitive action that has come down on folks that are doing nothing wrong because of these efforts, that's a big issue to me, which tells me that there's also a hidden agenda here to support these big businesses, these big corporations, to protect their trademarks, their copyrights, whatever it is, their intellectual property. And then those companies are using that to abusively go after people who are doing things the right way. And then they're using those tactics that they now have more ability to do because of this legislation in order to coerce people, to scare people, to make people settle cases that they shouldn't ever be settling because of the fear of how much it might cost them or how much the legal fees might be in these cases. And that's what we need to expose. This is a Joe Gibbs Racing Carl Edwards Pit Crew jacket, shirt, I guess. And it sold for $42.75 plus shipping. The good news is that word is getting out, and I'm a little proud of this. I've been a part of being able to get the word out to certain individuals who find themselves in these lawsuits right now. And there's other folks like this guy right here. His name's Eric Goldman here. This is a video, and I encourage you to watch it. I will post it again at the end of the video. and I'll put it in the comments. Roger Royce Law is where this channel is. There's only 101 views on this, but this will give you a very good idea of what I'm talking about. So I really encourage you to go watch that one. And he's kind of sounding alarm bells saying, hey, you know, yes, we want to protect intellectual property and all these things. However, we've got to protect normal mom and pop folks out there against this abuse. And he's getting the word out there. There's been articles written in different law school journals and things about this. And now there's a little bit of information out there. I think you remember, and the first time I commented on this year was after a Rockstar Flipper video. And I'm glad he's getting that information out there. I don't necessarily agree with the advice. I understand the advice, right? Because part of the advice is, you know, you don't even want to deal with these particular products at all whatsoever because you might find yourself caught up in a lawsuit. Well, if that tactic works, then where does it stop? You know, if one company or two companies or 10 companies start using these tactics that are abusive and not constitutional and not right, and it works and people roll over all the time, then other companies will begin to do it. And then where do we find ourselves? We find ourselves getting pinched farther and farther and farther, and our rights to be able to resell things legitimately are going to be constricted, and it's just not right. So at the same time, I don't want to tell people, yeah, go out there and fight and get a lawyer and spend, you know, $50,000 on a lawyer, because some people don't have that. But there are things you can do that aren't that expensive, and coming together collectively, I think, is a huge, huge answer in this. And there's another video I'm going to talk about that, where numbers make it much more feasible, because these companies are suing thousands of people in some cases, and they've caught up tons of people in there who have absolutely no business being in these lawsuits. What makes it possible for them to do that is the small cost associated with suing tons of people at the same time. At the same rate here, we should have that ability as well, and to be able to communicate to the people in that lawsuit and to band together to have representation that is collective, so it is way cheaper. And usually what happens, because in my opinion, these companies, some of these companies that are doing it the wrong way, they realize they're doing it the wrong way. And so what happens when there's any pushback at all is they drop people from these cases because they don't want to go in there and defend what they've done, because they know they haven't done it the right way. It's always a good day when I sell a little bit of Tupperware. This is a deviled egg keeper. I didn't go for much. They're actually not even going for what they used to. This one only went for $9.45 plus shipping. Now, in my opinion, a lot of these cases go way too far, but one particular way they go way, way too far is they'll just gobble up all of the listings that have a word in the title, and they'll be included in this lawsuit. Like they have the right because that's their trademarked word or whatever it is, which is utterly ridiculous. Can you imagine if this was allowed to stand across the board? You know, if I buy a Chevrolet truck and I want to go sell it 5 years later and I put it in the newspaper or Craigslist or whatever, and I can't put the word Chevrolet in the listing, that's ridiculous. That starts to encroach upon my for sale doctrine and private property rights. And so that's what I'm talking about. There's arguments on both sides of this issue. There are, you know, I don't want to get too political, but I want you to get the point that this isn't really a political issue, that no matter where you fall on the spectrum of politics or who your representative is, I think it would behoove us to contact them. And I did, and that's part of what I'm encouraged about. In other words, you know, there are folks, you know, whether it's judges on the right side of the spectrum who would find in favor of these people because they're trying to protect private property, because they're trying to curtail the abuses of overseas Chinese companies and protect intellectual property from companies in the United States. That would be a very right-leaning issue. But on the other side of the equation, you know, you're going to have left-leaning folks that want to argue for this for different reasons, or maybe even the same reasons. And so you're seeing judges on the right and the left be sympathetic to this, which I think, in my opinion, is a little bit short-sighted, because they're not looking at the private property rights of people like us, the little guys in this situation, and how it's being abusive towards us. Now, a lot of you, if you don't follow me, might not make a whole lot of sense to some of y'all, which is why I encourage you to watch these videos. I think it'll become more clear when you do. No, I don't sell ashtrays. I think this is near as much as I used to, especially not this kind of plain Jane style. This is just a 4-inch amber ashtray, but it is sellable for $9.95 plus shipping. As far as the good news goes, there's some stories out there where these people have been taken to task on a couple of key issues, which is the way they're serving people and standing in court and those type of things, because they're serving people in emails, they're sealing the court documents and all that, and people are being sued in, what's the word? My brain's not working today. Ex parte, meaning you're not even there. These people are getting decisions on their behalf without even anybody standing in front of them arguing for the other side. And to me, that's just utterly ridiculous. And a lot of these cases, from people I've heard from, they weren't even aware, or they were told to contact these people and they contacted them and they never got back to them. There's all kinds of these issues, and I've got specific ones, and I'm not going to give the names of these people, although one of them you would recognize who this person is. And hopefully someday he'll come out and talk about this whole thing. It's come out pretty good for him in the end, really good for him in the end. And let me tell you, he was really scared for a while, and I would have been too, because you pour your heart and soul into something and you're doing nothing wrong, and you got caught up in one of these schemes. And, you know, he found his way out of it, but it wasn't through, you know, just happenstance. He put in a lot of work to try to figure this out and to educate himself in this. I think it's really, really key. You know, knowledge is power. If you understand what's going on, you'll be able to pull the right levers and move in the right direction to get yourself dismissed from these cases, to do whatever it is without having to pay their ransom. And that's really what I think it is. I think it's a ransom that they're trying to get out of some people. Not all these folks. Sometimes they're accidentally catching up other people who shouldn't be in it, because it's cheaper to do it like that, carte blanche, than it is to go through and to make sure every single I is dotted and every T is crossed. And they're cutting corners and they're getting away with it in some cases. But lately, they haven't necessarily been getting away with it, which I think is really good in the long run for making sure this stuff doesn't happen to a whole ton of people. Or maybe I should say a lot more people, because it already has happened. And every time I talk about this, I get more and more emails. And I really think it would be a great idea if everybody would educate themselves out there, and we'd have a way to collectively respond, at least to people who get caught up in these things, in order to attack it as a group. That seems to be one of the keys in this. Another one seems to be educating your own politician. So I encourage you, not just if it happens to you, because I've contacted different legislators and it's never happened to me, not yet. It hasn't happened to me. But let me tell you, I was extremely encouraged by how receptive. I've spent over an hour now educating somebody in this legislator's office, and they're extremely open to it, and they're very curious about it, and they're continuing communications back and forth through me. They've asked me to send them the emails of people who sent the emails to me to tell them their stories as well. And I've now done that. Sometimes it's a clip of the email because I haven't got the permission of the person to pass that information on yet, so there's no name identified with it. Sometimes some of these folks have said, no, just send the whole thing. Put me in contact with them. I've told them, hey, that's great, you could do that, but you should also contact your own representative, because they need to know what's going on, because if they don't know, then they're going to just go along with this bipartisan nonsense that keeps coming out of there and keeps affecting us. By the way, that's why I'm very appreciative of Mr. Goldman here, because he says just that. He says, listen, educate your politicians. Call them. Tell them, because they think they're doing something that's right, but in the end, there's no protection for the private property rights of folks like us. By the way, for the folks that always want to say I can't sell anything unless it's to a viewer, this was to a viewer. So this is a fake sale out there. I think it is anyways. There was no message, but it is a repeat buyer, so I'm going to say it is. Not all repeat buyers are viewers, but a lot of them are, and this one was to a viewer as well. I think 2 of the 11 going out of here today are to viewers. I'm pretty sure about it anyway. It's a baseball cube. We've told this story before, $7.95 plus shipping. This one's going out to Patty Brown, my mom's name, so you've bought from us multiple times now in the past, so we appreciate that. She says, love watching your videos with your family. Not a reseller, but still enjoy. I don't watch Trash to Cash, though. I don't blame you, Patty. Blessings to you and your whole family. By the way, I want to bring this point up, and this is not necessarily a knock on eBay, but it's just some reality here. I've talked about the Shop Safe Act as well, and the reality is that the same people who pushed the Inform Act are now pushing this other act, which hopefully will not become law. However, in some ways, if I could replace one with the other, I would rather have Shop Safe than the Informed Consumer Act, because it puts, well, in some ways I would, I guess, it puts the liability much more with the reselling platform in the Shop Safe Act than it does with the individual seller. However, the combination of the two is just a disaster, in my opinion, because then we're paying at both ends, because there are some consequences to the Shop Safe Act, which is going to increase how much it costs for these platforms to be able to operate, which means we're going to be eating that cost, which means the price of goods is going to be going up. And in my opinion, I said this about the Shop Safe Act, that's part of the design of this, because there are a lot of forces out there that don't want secondhand marketplaces. They want to restrict people's ability to buy their items to them and to the people they say it's okay to buy them from. And that is an issue. So I don't support the Shop Safe Act. If I were to trade one for the other, I'd take Shop Safe, and I hate both of them because they're just way too broad and they don't protect other people's rights, only the rights of the people that own the intellectual property, and that's just not right either. So I don't want to get into all the details. I could talk about this stuff for hours. I've talked about them before, so you'll have to go back and look at some of those if you want, but I really encourage you to educate yourself. I'm going to ask you to watch one more video as well. It's a really long one, but it was well done. I'll tell you about that one here in a second, but I'm going to grab a little house banner really quick. This is a watermelon slice banner, perfect for spring coming up. And it didn't sell for much, $9 plus shipping. And this is from Emma in the Moment, who I previously didn't know at all, but she has a massive channel, talks about crafting and stuff like that. But the company that sued 700 small businesses at once is, of course, the Emoji Company. That one, which you heard Casey talk about, some of you maybe, on his channel. And it is a very long video, but it is very well done. Maybe you turn up the speed a little bit and listen to it, but it shows the effects and how people are trapped in these situations. It also shows the weakness of these companies, in my opinion, because they know they've done some things that are not correct. This ex parte stuff, this serving through email stuff, all that stuff is going to catch them up in these schemes, in my opinion. And it's also not good popular opinion as well. You know, you saw the case, some of you may know that case, Luke Combs, and then the lady that was a TikTok, and she was doing things that weren't right, things that I would not do. But at the same time, the optics of it was terrible for him. And, you've heard a little bit about the Taylor Swift jacket thing, the Nike, I think it was a Nike jacket that was customized and that they had sold and it was promoting it, but it had a Nike emblem on it. It was upcycled. So technically that's probably not legal as well, but it gives a very bad image if a company like Nike would come down and really come down punitively on somebody else. I think it was interesting that it was Taylor Swift doing that, because I'm sure she wants to protect her intellectual property and stuff like that, and rightly should. If I was an artist, I would as well. But these things are not clear cut. The problem I have is rolling over on issues that are extremely important. Not everybody's got $10,000 to go hire a lawyer and go fight, or $50,000, or however much it might cost you. That's not what I'm saying, but everybody should fight back in some way, even if you've been in the wrong on something. If it's a one-off, if you sell 10,000 items and one of them is not right technically somehow, then, you shouldn't be banished from a website. You shouldn't be facing a massive lawsuit. That's ridiculous. And that's the kind of stuff where the damages don't match what's actually taken place here. I mean, these people in these lawsuits are asking ridiculous amounts of money, and they know that it is impossible for people to pay to defend themselves. And so then they come and they give you an offer of, hey, well, you give us $1,500, or you give us $3,500, or you give us $500, we'll release you from the lawsuit. That's just, you might as well be the mafia, for goodness sake. That's ridiculous as well. Here's another small sale. We had a few today. We've got a bunch more, but this is what I picked out to do today because this video had a pretty long topic. 701C. It's a Duro decal, it's a little teacup set thing. I don't know what it is, $5 plus shipping, which doesn't seem like much, but we have absolutely hundreds and hundreds of different decals, and some of them have quantities, 50, 60, 80, so it seems worth it. All right, I got Turner with some Commonwealth comedy and Wallen on the floor. What do you got for us today? You going to alienate my audience again? You're going to tell a bad joke? That's going to get me in trouble. All right, what is it?
How do we know when Taylor Swift broke up with somebody?
How do you know when Taylor Swift broke up with somebody? I don't know how.
Because she released an album.
Very good, but there's a lot of people like Taylor Swift. You're gonna get me in trouble out there. You're gonna get all these unsubs, but I like your edginess lately. I appreciate you, bud.
Bye.
All right, Reagan's got one thank you today. Who do you got?
Yvonne got a gray shirt and a tumbler.
And that's right. Got a comment. You got to show them all of the logos there. There you go. All of the logos and a gray shirt. We appreciate that, Yvonne. Thank you very much. And these guys are, well, they were sold out on CommonwealthPicker.com, but I stole some off of Whatnot and put a few more over there. But we are selling the rest of them off on Whatnot, $15, so that people could go down there and sign up through the link to Whatnot, and they get a free $15. They just got to pay shipping and taxes. Thank you, Reagan.
Bye, and don't forget to get your sticker at CommonwealthPicker.com.
All right, so I picked those two videos. You know, I hope you go watch them. And I picked those two videos on purpose. Both because they were well done and they make a lot of sense, but both of them because they're probably from people who are on different sides of the aisle. And I think that that's what's the takeaway from this. No matter what your political opinions are, and those are important to all of us, I think that this is something that we can all kind of band together and do. And one last thing, I've had a lot of people ever since I've kind of hinted at, I think we need some kind of a group. That doesn't necessarily mean it needs to be massive or have fees and have all that stuff, but one place that we could go to if and when something like this happens to some of us, because I think the one thing, the takeaway from both of these is the knowledge is power, and then being able to come together in a group. And this video right here, and in the moment, talked about people coming together, 30-some people coming together and splitting the money to pay a lawyer to appeal to this company to say, this is ridiculous, you need to drop this. And that's exactly what happened. And it didn't cost them hardly anything because there was a big group of people. And they're specifically in these suits trying to keep people, they're sealing everything from communicating with each other. And that is a huge issue. And I think that YouTube plays a part in it. You know, all the people who have done videos about this, all the people who have commented, told stories in these Facebook groups and stuff, and people are starting to wise up to it. And I think if we're proactive about it, we first learn about it. You know, you could be broke. You don't have to have money to learn about something. And even if you're in that situation where if it happens to you and you can't fight back, I still encourage you not to pay the fee, to take other steps first, not to pay the buy-off. That should not be your first step. I'm pretty comfortable in saying that. I realize some people may want to do that because they're afraid. But if that's the case and it happens all the time, there'll be some serious ramifications for everybody down the road. So, but of course, you need to do what's in your own economic and mental well-being at the same time. So, at any rate, just something I'm pretty passionate about. We'll talk about it from time to time. Sales have been going pretty darn good. I know it doesn't look like much here, but I could film a whole nother video right here, and which is good because I need an extra video for next week anyway. So anyway, we appreciate you stopping by as always, and I can't wait to see you next time.